Hello everyone and welcome to today's daily news analysis. The important articles for discussion today are number 1 DNA polymorphism, then the Waqf Bill, number 3 delimitation, number 4 India-US trade relations, and number 5 is the food wastage. So without wasting any time, let's start the discussion. The first topic for the day, which is DNA polymorphism. The DNA and the associated topics are very important from the biotechnology theme. And we find that every year 2 to 3 questions are being asked from this theme, and specifically the genetics and the heredity and the associated genetic disorders and their solutions using biotechnology. These are very important and questions do occur from these themes repeatedly. For example, what is CAR T cell therapy? Vaccine manufacturing, and specifically the procedures here. What is pro-nuclear transfer? Mitochondrial DNA. So all these terms which I have mentioned right now have been asked previously in the examination. So that is why DNA polymorphism, its applications, these can be asked in the examination. So the relevance is from biotechnology, from the prelims perspective, and it's a cutting edge technology and how it can be used in the applications which are very wide. Then the backdrop is the DNA fingerprints can establish parent-child relationship and help identify individuals from their mortal remains at disaster sites. So this was the context, and from there this concept came into the news. That is why we are studying it. So what is DNA? DNA particularly. DNA has 2 strands. DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid. And each strand is a sequence of 4 chemical bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine and thymine. The strands are anti-parallel, that is run in opposite directions, and complementary, that means A's and C's of one strand bond with T's and G's on the other. During cell division, strands pull apart and a new complementary strand is created for each one. Hence, the daughter DNA has the same sequence of the bases. If a cell makes a mistake and inserts a wrong base, this is called mutation. And during the process of mutation only, we find that there can be genes which are cancer causing, they might be expressed. So mutation can also result to cancer. Each human cell consists 46 DNA molecules, 23 inherited via sperm from father and 23 via egg from mother. DNA is packed inside the chromosome. So there is also a diagram of, in the NCERT, if you will see how a chromosome and inside it the DNA is layered, and what is the protein which helps in layering and compressing of the DNA, let us know in the comment box below, because it is an important question. Then making copies of DNA. So because whenever we try to diagnose which particular disease is spreading and what is the DNA of the virus, for example in COVID, we took samples from the patient, and then using polymerase chain reaction, we used to increase the number of DNAs of the particular sample and then test it and verify that which species particularly this virus or bacteria belongs to. So we make copies of DNA. So copies of DNA helps in better detection. So laboratory procedure called as polymerase chain reaction is used to make copies of particular stretch of DNA. The process is, we extract the genetic material, heat it. For example, we obtain DNA sample for 25 seconds to split the strands apart, introduce a primer. Primer means which binds the portion of interest of the DNA, and we add polymerase. Polymerase, what does polymerase do? It is an enzyme which increases the number of copies of the particular DNA which we want to analyze. Then a device that performs this step is called thermocycler. So this is the very process, particularly it's a very basic process. It's also mentioned in the NCERT, so one should know about it. Then the polymorphism, particularly the topic which why it was in use. Polymorphism refers to existence of two or more distinct form of morphs within a single species or population arising from genetic variation. For instance, chromosome 3 from the father contains DNA that is largely similar to that derived from the mother. The few parts that are different are called polymorphisms. These different forms or phenotypes can be observed in the same habitat and the time and are maintained by a population's interbreeding. Application: where can we use the DNA polymorphism? It is used to differentiate one person from the another. It makes tracing of ancestry possible. DNA profiles are also generated using polymorphisms in parts of the DNA called as short tandem repeats. So this is again a keyword which can be used. Uses of polymorphism: DNA profiles are also used in using polymorphism as parts of DNA called short tandem repeats. It makes tracing of ancestry possible. It is used to differentiate one person from the another, as we discussed. Then what are short tandem repeats? It is a short sequence of base pairs. Base pair we discussed, A, T, G, C on the DNA that is repeated some number of times. For example, GATC, GATC. So this is the repetition, GATC. And then we see again GATC. Then here again GATC on the complementary strand, and this STR will have the sequence on the complementary strand. Then STRs are also polymorphic. Unrelated individuals almost certainly have different number of repeated units in at least some STRs. So these sequence of units of the base pairs is the basis of differentiation between identity of one person and the another. What is DNA fingerprinting? This was asked in the previous years. DNA fingerprinting is a technique that analyzes individuals' unique DNA characteristics using variation in DNA sequence to create a profile for identification purpose in forensic science, paternity testing and other applications. This fingerprint can be established using DNA from teeth, bones, blood, spit, semen, skin cells, etc. This can establish a parent-child relationship and can help identify individuals from their mortal remains at disaster sites. It can be used to identify suspects, used to identify or exclude potential donors during organ donation. So it has wide applications. So on the basis of the previous years, we have a question, that is RNA interference technology. So there are many keywords in biotechnology, out of which is one RNA interference, and please to try to attempt this question and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now moving on to the second topic of the day, which is the Waqf Bill. Why is this in news? Waqf Bill 2024 was introduced into the parliament and there has been a lot of controversy around this bill. That is why the bill was in news, and the Indian Express explained section today covered the Waqf Bill and what are the contentious things in this bill. And the article mentions those things, and this article is relevant from GS2 governance and specifically in Indian polity point of view. And because Waqf Bill has an implication on fundamental rights, that is rights of minorities and their method and their right to regulate their own religion and the internal issues of a religion. So that is why this is in news. Now starting with it, what is Waqf? Waqf refers to properties dedicated exclusively for religious or charitable purpose under the Islamic law, and any other use or sale of the property is prohibited. Waqf means that the ownership of the property is now taken away from the person making waqf and transferred and detained by Allah. Waqif is the person who creates waqf for the beneficiary. A mutawali is appointed by the waqif or by competent authority who manage to or administer the waqf. So waqf is related to property used for charitable or religious purpose under Islamic law. Then there are certain rights associated with this property, and the structure of the rights and the nature of the competent authority is being changed in the bill. So that is why it is being made controversial. Then some facts related to Waqf property. Waqf board currently controls 8.7 lakh properties spanning 9.4 lakh acres across India. with an estimated value of 1.2 lakh crores. India has the largest Waqf holding in the world. So this is an important fact. There are around 3,56,051 Waqf estate registered under the Waqf board. There are 8,72,000 immovable properties registered under the Waqf board. Islamic countries such as Turkey, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Lebanon, etc. do not have Waqf. However, in India, not only are Waqf boards the largest urban landowners, but they also have an act protecting them legally. So these two things are more important. Largest urban landowner, India has the largest Waqf holding in the world, and these properties are protected legally. What is the issue concerned with the Waqf board? Irrevocability of the Waqf properties. The principle of once a Waqf, always a Waqf. So this is a contentious issue because the property cannot be then shifted and used for other purposes. Litigation and mismanagement of the Waqf property. No judicial oversight. There is no judicial oversight on tribunal decisions. Constitutional validity. Waqf Act is a special act for religious properties of only one religion of the country. Delhi High Court has issued notice to the central government on this plea regarding the constitutional validity of the Waqf. Now, what are the issues? The type of issues, complaints prevailing in the existing system. So, these four are important cases regarding the Waqf board. The Surat Municipal Corporation case, Bengaluru Eidgah ground case, Shiv Shakti Society, this is again Surat, islands in Bet Dwarka. So these four are important cases which concerns the Waqf bill. Now what are the key features of the amendment bill? Then now the renaming of the Waqf Act, then formation of the Waqf, then the government property as Waqf, power to determine if property is Waqf or not, survey of the Waqf, Waqf board for Bohra and Aga Khani. So these are sects. So what are the issues associated with this Waqf bill? In 2024 bill proposed allowing non-Muslim chief executive officer and at least 2 non-Muslim members to be appointed by the state governments to their state's Waqf board. So this is one contentious issue. Second, the bill gave district collectors the power to determine if a disputed property is a Waqf or belongs to the government. This determination is currently made by the Waqf tribunal. So the power of Waqf tribunal has been shifted to district collector. In 2024, the 2024 bill does away with the concept of Waqf by user, which is a part of 1995 law. The bill requires every Waqf property to be registered on a central database within 6 months of the law's commencement. The bill has also changed how the Waqf tribunal will be formed. It states that it will comprise a district judge and a state government officer of joint secretary rank as its members. Then we have some constitutional provisions related to property and minority rights. The Article 300A of the Constitution provides that no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. Now, the Article 21 says that any section of the citizen residing in the territory of India or any part thereof having a distinct language, script, culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. Article 30 guarantees that all religious and linguistic minorities shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. So these are special rights to minorities under fundamental rights. Then there is a demand of Joint Parliamentary Committee. So what is Joint Parliamentary Committee? Recently the JPC submitted its reports on Waqf Bill. The JPC is set up by the Parliament, so to be noted, by the Parliament for special purposes like the detailed scrutiny of a bill. It has members from both the houses and from the ruling parties and the opposition. It is dissolved after a term's end and a task has been completed. A JPC is set up after one house of the Parliament has passed the motion and the other has agreed to it. The members of the JPC are decided by the Parliament. To fulfill its mandate in investigating an issue, the JPC can scrutinize documents and summon people for questioning. The proceedings and the findings of the committee are confidential except in matters of public interest. While the recommendations of a JPC have persuasive value, they are not binding. Now, on the basis of the discussion, we have a practice question here. So please do attempt it and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now moving on to the third article, that is delimitation. The delimitation exercise has been in use for a while now, and it is important from GS2 and Indian polity perspective. And even last year in 2024 prelims, we find that there was a question on the delimitation exercise. So let's start the discussion. What is delimitation? Delimitation literally means the act or process of fixing limits or boundaries of territorial constituencies in a country or a province having a legislative body. So this is a basic definition. Constitutional provisions related to the delimitation exercise. Article 82 and 170 clause 3 of the Constitution stipulates that readjustment of the constituencies shall take effect from such days as the President may by order specify. The Delimitation Commission in India is a high power body whose orders have the force of law and cannot be called into question before any court. These orders come into force on the date to be specified by the President of India. The copies of its order are laid before houses of people and the state legislative assembly concerned, but no modifications are permissible. History and the evolution of the delimitations. In India, such delimitation commissions have been constituted 4 times: 1952, then 1963, then 1973, and in 2002 under Delimitation Act of 2002. The number of seats in the Lok Sabha based on 1951, 1961 and 1971 census was fixed at 494, 522 and 543, when the population was 36.1, 43.9 and 54.8 crore respectively. This broadly translated into average population of 7.3, 8.4 and 10 lakh per seat respectively. So this is the 543 is the number of MPs in Lok Sabha. Now MPs of Lok Sabha divided by the population, that is the average population they are representing. Therefore here 1 MP is representing 10.1 lakh. However, it has been frozen as per census of 1971 in order to encourage population control measures so that states with higher population growth do not end up having higher number of seats. This was done through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act till the year of 2000 and was extended by 84th Constitutional Amendment Act till 2026. So this is important, the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act. The population based on which the number of seats is allocated refers to the population as per 1971 census. This number will be readjusted based on the first census after 2026. The boundaries of territorial constituencies were readjusted without changing the number of seats. So the delimitation which happened the most recent delimitation which happened, it readjusted only the boundaries. It did not create new constituencies, and seats for ST and STs were determined as per 2001 census and will again be carried out after 2026. Then we have certain international practices. In the European Union Parliament, which consists of 720 members, the number of seats is divided between 27 countries based on the principle of degressive proportionality. Under this principle, the ratio of population to the number of seats shall increase as the population increases. In Australia, one vote, one value is a democratic principle applied in electoral rolls governing redistribution of electoral divisions. Now here we have an MCQ based upon Delimitation Commission. Please do answer it and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now the next article is India-US trade relations. Now American trade delegation has started 5-day visit, and US plans to impose tariffs on India also, because after the advent of Trump there have been tariff wars. So in this context, India-US trade relations are in news. Let's see what all has been in the articles. So in the India-US trade, we should know the basic facts about the India-US trade. The India-US trade, including goods and services, is touching $200 billion with a trade deficit about $45 billion in India's favor. So these two terms are important. US plans to impose reciprocal tariffs on India, which are feared to affect India's key exports such as agriculture, meat, processed food, automobiles, diamond, gold products, chemicals and pharma products. India is currently working on defining the scope of the first tranche of the BTA. BTA is bilateral trade agreement. So here US is one of the largest export destination of India. By one measure, US plus EU constitute around 33% of India's exports. So what happens in US, what happens in EU has a direct implication of India's trade. The government has now proposed to abolish the 6% equalization levy on online advertisement. This was also called as the Google tax, a part of amendment in the finance bill under the pressure from new United States administration. This has been in force since 2016 on payment exceeding 1 lakh a year to a non-resident service provided for online advertisement. Last year, India had removed 2% levy on digital services lended to Indian businesses by offshore technology firms like Google, Meta and Amazon. The energy sector. This is also one of the contentious issues. India has zeroed out its oil imports from Venezuela after threats from previous Trump administration. It resumed imports in December 2023 after Biden administration relaxed some sanctions. So, India imports oil from Venezuela. Now, Venezuela and the trading partners of Venezuela are being threatened by sanctions. And India also imports oil from Venezuela. So that is why what is important is important sources of crude oil. The ranking. What is US's rank? Then what about Iraq? Third, Russia. Fourth, Saudi Arabia. Then Venezuela. Trying to arrange them in chronological order, and do let us know the answer in the comment box below. What is the chronological order or the ascending order of the ranking on the basis of the amount of oil India is importing from these countries? Okay, so now here on the basis of a PYQ, we have a practice question. Please do attempt it and let us know the answer in the comment box below. Now, the last article for the day. The issue at hand here is the food wastage, the amount of food wastage, and the context of the news is the UN food waste report was released and it has revealed that the world wasted nearly 20% of all the food available to the consumers, and India ranks among the top contributors to this global issue. Where is this relevant for us in the examination? GS paper 2, social justice, public distribution system in GS paper 3, and even one can see in GS paper 4, because food wastage, along with being an social issue, being an economic issue, it is also an ethical issue. Ethical issue, by ethical issue what we mean? It is linked to excessive consumerism. So if we want to control food wastage, one should also invest in values such as frugality, mindful consumption. And from consumption perspective, one can also see that this issue of food wastage is also linked to environment and climate change. So this one issue is linked to various dimensions. So for mains, it is advisable that one should see an issue with multi-dimensional perspectives. So its relevance, as we have discussed, why is it in news, why the author has written this article at this moment, we have discussed that. So now let's start the discussion. Here we have mentioned 3 previous year questions which are related to food, and we see that this is an important theme, and other themes related to food are, for example, the article mentions about food wastage, but the PYQs mention that what are the impediments in marketing and supply chain management in developing a food processing industry, the FPI. Can e-commerce help in overcoming this bottleneck? Examine the role of supermarkets in supply chain management of fruits, vegetables and food items. How do they eliminate number of intermediaries? What are the reformative steps taken by the government to make food grain distribution system more effective? So this is linked to food security, PDS and reforms in PDS. This here links to supply chain, both the food supply chain, how it can be made more efficient, how wastage can be reduced, how investment in infrastructure related to food processing industry can help in managing the food better, can reduce the food wastage. So the article mentions the food which is available to consumer and then it is wasted. But apart from that, for example, let's see, if this is a farm and this here is 100% of its produce. Out of this produce, due to post harvest losses and other losses, only let's say 75% is available for consumers, to consumers. Out of this also consumers waste food, but apart from this 25% which is not reached to the consumers also, this is also wasted due to inefficient supply chains, due to inefficient management of the food produce. For example, tomato, a very high spoilage rate. Horticultural crops, they get spoiled very easily with slight change in temperature. Again, wheat, due to poor storage, wheat can be spoiled. So all these are post harvest losses, which are we should strive to reduce such post harvest losses. But there are again supply chain losses, out of which the food which is available to consumers, and due to their habits, their spending patterns, again we have a lot of food wastage. Now coming on to the data, the United Nations Food Waste Index report reveals that in 2022, the world wasted 1.5 billion tons of food, equating nearly 20% of all the food available to consumers. The report highlights India's position as one of the highest food wasting nations, second only to China. Wastage versus loss. Food wastage, as defined by the Food Waste Index report, it includes edible, inedible parts discarded from the food supply chain from manufacturing and retail to restaurants and household. Food loss occurs earlier in the supply chain due to issues such as poor storage, transportation and handling. This is what we discussed earlier, that is wastage is different from food loss. Loss is across the supply chain, food wastage is from food supply chain, manufacturing to retail, restaurants and households. What are the reasons behind food wastage? Number one, over purchasing. Over purchasing is linked to consumerism, buying more groceries than needed, mindless consumption, not mindful, and even reducing the food consumed can reduce carbon footprint. Then limited storage, small refrigerators or lack of pantries. Then retail market challenges, poor refrigeration and short shelf life. What does this mean? Short shelf life. Horticultural crops, for example vegetables, they have very short shelf life. So to increase their shelf life, we need to invest in infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure? Cold chain infrastructure. Fruits, they get spoiled very easily. So again, better logistics and transport should be efficient so that it is easily transported to the consumers. The producers and the consumers are linked very efficiently, so that the time consumed is less and spoilage is also less. Limited storage, retail markets, and then improper meal planning, not planning meals leading to spoilage. This is again linked to individual behavior. Then cultural habits, cooking large portions for celebrations. As we see even in celebrations during festivals, we find that a lot of sweets are kept and they are spoiled, they are wasted. So cultural habits also do promote to food wastage. Then what are the impacts of food wastage? Due to this, India faces complex challenge of abundant production alongside persistent food security. That is, inequality is manifesting in food insecurity. There are many who have plenty, but there are many who are poor, who cannot afford the food. And food production is resource intensive, requiring huge amounts of land, water, and energy. When food is wasted, so are these precious resources, hence increasing the carbon footprint. The food waste accounts for 10 to 12% of the total municipal waste, contributing significantly to the methane emissions, a potent greenhouse gas. So, this point here, this is linked to environment and climate change. The resource one is also linked to environment, climate change. The social injustice, as it exacerbates challenge of food accessibility and affordability, hindering progress towards SDG 2, that is zero hunger, SDG 12.3, reduce food wastage at retail and consumer levels. So this is related to social justice. So we find that there are multiple levels here. This is also linked to social issues, inclusive growth. This is here important from GS3, here GS3, this also from GS1, this is GS2, GS1, this is again GS3. So we see this is a cross-cutting issue. It has multiple applications in our syllabus. So this becomes very important. Then action needs to be taken at the house level. Smart meal planning and shopping, efficient food storage, creative use of leftovers, turning leftover vegetables into soup, composting, turning kitchen scraps into vermicompost, and donating surplus food to local food banks and charities. So for this we need better NGOs who can have efficient food banks. This would result into saving food wastage, reducing food wastage, and also realizing the goal of food security. The government must invest in building more cold storage and transportation infrastructure. Cold storage will increase the shelf life. Transportation will reduce wastage as time consumed in reaching the consumers would reduce. Then businesses should adopt sustainable practices such as redistributing unsold food. So this is also a good example where can be used in GS paper 4 ethics. Actions need to be taken again. Educational institution can raise awareness about responsible consumption. Policymakers should subsidize innovative solutions such as food redistribution networks and improve cold storage. Initiatives such as India's Save Food, Share Food program demonstrates the potential of large-scale redistribution efforts. Now, on the basis of the discussion on the issue, we have a practice question for you. Address the food waste. Addressing the food waste is essential for tackling carbon footprint, ensuring food security and reducing social inequality. Critically examine. So try to attempt this question, and I feel that this article is immensely important, and I hope you guys must have extracted valuable information out of the discussion today, and I hope all the very best to you. Thank you. That's all for today's discussion.